What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining us. I'm Kevin. I'm the Product Development Manager here at Mucara, and joining us is Warner Yang, the CEO here.
Hi, everyone.
And we're here to have a discussion about how to go about finding a vape hardware manufacturer. There's a lot to consider. There's a huge array of manufacturers out there, so we're here to just help you navigate that whole system.
Yeah, I think we can simplify it. Few points that everyone should look at.
Right.
Number one, safety. But what does that safety entail, right? At least for me, I've seen multiple, factories that, in my opinion, was unsatisfactory. These products are made for us to inhale. So I think minimum standard is they should have ISO certifications, right? So that they're made properly. And if possible, they have a ISO 13485 certification, which is the certification to manufacture medical devices.
Okay.
That means if they could make medical devices, they're top of the standard for the vaporizer industry, right? Second one, you look at if they're GMP certified. I mean, you wouldn't want to eat off of a, out of a dirty kitchen, right? So same thing, you wouldn't want products that are made in a dirty facility. So clean room is a must. So the place of manufacture, I think, is really important. Okay. I think secondly, you gotta look at is the materials used. Right. I mean, you heard this, right? Oh, is it a ceramic, atomizer?
Right.
Okay, what about the rest of it? Right. Even within ceramic, there's different grades of ceramic.
Yeah.
There's different ways of processing ceramic. So one thing is always ask if the ceramic is food grade. Because you gotta know, the ceramic is used to soak up, for example, distillate. And then the heating element, usually stainless steel or something like that, vaporizer. And so it's touching the ceramic. And if ceramic is made wrong or not food quality, I mean, it's absorbing it.
Right.
And
that's what leaching, the concerns with leaching, like the ceramic and the metals, so to speak.
Correct. And so the particles, when you manufacture ceramic, there's ceramic dust, right? So you got to make sure you have a proper company that knows how to manufacture. And don't get fooled. There's a lot of companies that just buy ceramic, cones from, ceramic manufacturers, but it was never meant for vaporizers. So look for a company that makes ceramic themselves, if you can, and then they're manufactured the proper way.
Right.
And then material used is food grade ceramic. I would say, and then the metal used, very importantly, in my opinion, is 316 stainless steel. So many people advertise stainless steel, but there's a huge difference between the density of stainless steel and what kitchens use. They use 316, and the reason why is the density of the stainless steel. The pores are really dense, so that it can't corrode. And that's usually where the leaching problems happen when you corrode. But also, dirty things don't get stuck in there, I guess. So it's so hard that it's really clean. So I think those are the two basic materials that you have to really look at. And the last one you want to really look at is the plastics being used, because a lot of these have plastic and the silicone.
Right.
But the plastic, I recommend a factory that's sourcing these plastics from a company called Eason. And it's because they're known for making high quality plastic that are high temp plastic. People can advertise high temp plastic, but who's making it?
Right.
So whoever, it's really important that they're sourcing it from a credible supplier.
Right.
And then the silicone, it has to be a food grade high temp silicone, right? And so those are the things I'll look at when it comes to materials.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know there's a concern over enough testing being done after these things are assembled, and what's that kind of element going on? Do all the companies actually advertise what kind of tests they actually put their cartridges or devices too and give you the results and all that?
Well, the good thing is that across the industry, everyone has, human nature, humans, in my opinion, are good people. They try their best to provide something great. But there's always some that slips through the cracks. And, what I would look for is someone that has done testing, their hardware has done testing, either, static test that's been sitting there for a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, or at least minimum accelerated test. Because it's easy for a cheap hardware to pass heavy metal test.
Interesting.
Because once you put the oil in, it's not corroding it. So you send it off to a lab, the lab doesn't know, and then they test it, and they're like, hey, there's no heavy metal leaching. Well, ask them if they have an accelerated test or a static test, right? That's been sitting for a long time. And so that way you can know and ensure that after time, the oil has not corroded and gives you a passing non-heavy metal leaching test, right? Because once if you put it in really quickly and test it, it's gonna give you positive results.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the longer it sits in the oil, the longer it'll corrode, and then you'll get different results, kind of thing.
Correct.
That brings me to another subject: is the oil. Like the oil has improved dramatically over the years. Tech has kind of slowly kept pace with it. Are there companies out there that are actually putting the tech forefront as far as this is a big development need for us?
Well, when choosing a company based off the tech, right? So let's just assume that all the safety standards are passed, right? Or you check it, right? Yes, tech is another one you should really look at. I would say this is very subjective. Oil has improved tremendously, in my opinion. I'm no expert. I'm not an extraction expert. There's plenty of companies out there that are really good at what they do. But I've been a fan of the technology that's been developed. And, at least my understanding is a long time ago, if you can make a high THC content oil, you were golden.
Right.
Hey, that oil is expensive, it's good, right? Because of high THC. But, the way I look at cannabis oil is the way I also look at alcohol, right? I'm not comparing them. I'm just kind of giving you a similarity. And, in the beginning, people just wanted to get drunk. So there was moonshine, right? You just make it and you just get drunk, right? But now people want to hit the different notes, the different terpenes, right? And then very importantly is the cannabinoids, right? So in order to deliver that, I don't think traditional technology has been able to deliver that. And so what I would look at is if you are a low-cost product, then your general, ceramic coils can work, which exists. Plenty of people sell it. But if you're looking at, high-quality oils that you're putting your, sweat, into it, right? Why put it in an inferior product? Because what happens when you put a really good oil in a inferior hardware is that it's not able to deliver what the oil actually tastes, what the cannabinoids needs to deliver, right? So I would look at technology as in mesh coil. Traditional coil is literally a cylinder, and then it has a membrane, which typically is a cotton, and then it soaks in. It soaks in the cotton, and the cotton soaks into the ceramic.
Right.
And then inside the ceramic, there is a spring-like coil. And then there's a negative, positive, and you light that up, right? You power it up. And then it's kind of like a light bulb. The center kind of glows, right? Like a light bulb. So you have a center hot spot, and that hot spot can be very hot. And there's technology out there like the mesh coil. What it is, it's like a mesh, like a net. So instead of having a center hot spot, it's evenly distributed. And what that does is it gives you better vaporization surface, and it also gives you better flavor because the hot spot in traditional technology is actually burning away.
Right.
It's not vaporizing. So therefore, a evenly distributed technology is really important when you're coming to pick hardware for your, product.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess we can move on to another subject would be production. What are production needs for, what should someone look for when it comes to their production needs, really?
Well, I would say this. It's easy for most factories to provide your samples, in working condition. It's really easy for factories to give you 5,000, 10,000 pieces that works perfect. But unfortunately, some of our audience probably experienced this before, is after the first 10,000, the second 20,000, or the second, the 100,000 pieces that you get, it becomes really inconsistent.
Right.
And, so you have to look at a factory or a vendor that's able to scale with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think anyone start business saying, hey, I want to sell 1,000 pieces for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like, hey, you know what? I'm going to invest in 1,000 pieces and then 5,000 pieces. I'm going to grow my business. So you must look for a company. And if you have the opportunity, I would visit the facility. And you can clearly see if this company can support your needs. And you can see if they're actually, their certifications are
legitimate.
there. So I think for production, you must look at a company that not only can produce you numbers, but can produce you numbers that have a very low failure rate.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about other elements? Like, what should someone in the field look for aside from like the main three things we just mentioned? Like, what are other services that people should find or look for?
Well, this is subjective, but this is my opinion. Is I think the service that the manufacturer has is really important. And what I mean by that is, so anyone can call a factory and say, hey, send me some samples. And then they'll send you tons of samples. But, I think the hardware specialist should be able to assist you on picking the hardware. And what I mean by that is, so typically people get, 10, 20 samples, and then they'll put oil in there, and then they'll pass it out. Right?
Right.
And, like, let's just say for you, for instance, on a Friday, end of the work, you're happy, it's about to be weekend, and you might vape something and give it a higher score.
Mm-hmm.
Then Monday, you're really tired coming to work, you might give it a lower score. Mm-hmm. It could be totally opposite, But what I mean by that is it's very inconsistent unless you have a huge pool of live testers.
Right.
And how often do you have a pool of 100? It's really difficult. So what my recommendation is, find a company that could do this. Number one, they can test your oil in their device and give you the TPM. Okay. What that is total particulars matter. Mm-hmm. And then so now you know how big of a hit your customers are getting.
Yeah.
Right? So you'll know the performance. Number two, they can provide life cycle. What that means is, how long does your 1 gram of oil or half gram of oil last in the lifetime of this device? Number three, inhalation resistance, right? Because there's a lot of people say, oh, this is so tight or this is so loose. Well, find a company that's able to test that, so you'll know objectively that this is the right inhalation resistant I want.
Right.
Right. And then another test that make sure they can do is temperature, high, low. So you'll know because Mikera is sold across the world. Predominantly, in North America. Mm-hmm. And we know that in the winter of, California and the winter of New York, it's different.
Cold, completely different.
Right?
Yeah.
So you want to know that if you're MSO or you're a large hardware supplier, you want to know that your product is going to work in different temperatures. Mm-hmm. And so make sure the company that you pick have that service, right? And I would say last, there's plenty of other things, but I would say last is probably someone that could do the customization you need, right?
Right.
So most factories could do customization overseas, but you're going to get a sample, I would say 6 weeks to sometimes 6 months.
Right.
It's crazy, right? So I would look for a company that can produce customization in a large scale, but in a pinch, can also do customization locally for you.
Right.
That way, because the industry moves really quick, and your customer always want it yesterday. So make sure that they have that service. So those are the things that I would probably personally look for when I'm looking for a company to buy my, to vend my hardware from. That way, because in my opinion, is the best way for a brand to grow, right? Because everyone can provide it for you, but can they provide all of this for you? And all these aspects to me is longevity and preparation for growth.
Right, definitely. Right. Brand awareness is huge for that kind of element and all that.
Correct. I mean, because like when you're building a brand, you're really building a reputation. And if you go with a vendor that can provide you these things, you're gonna have a very inconsistent product. And what's the point of spending so much money in marketing if you can't grow your product right?
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thanks for joining us today. I hope a lot of people got that information very useful for them. Keep on the lookout for any more videos that we'll be putting out, and thank you.
Bye, guys.